everyone, December 25th, 2021. Merry Christmas. I wasn't really thinking I'd need to do videos this many times, but I wanted to update you on the latest. The FDA says it'll take 75 years to fully release Pfizer vaccine data. Why could that be? Is there something in there we should know about? On page 5 of the alleged approval, I found under section 2, the background data, it states, in patients with pneumonia of unknown cause. And then there's a bunch of redacted hidden ingredients, so we don't know what there is. This is a fact. In 2010, the European Medicines Agency found rickettsia in a few batches of vaccines. Now, I've been researching Wolbachia and how it interacts with viruses. Wolbachia falls under the umbrella term of rickettsialis, and rickettsia certainly fits with that. Now, when I studied nursing back in the early 90s, there were 4 types of pneumonia, but now there's only, I guess, viral pneumonia, and it's called COVID, like the common cold. In fact, in 1964, it was June Imelda that first imaged a coronavirus, so it's weird how we never hear about her, isn't it? It was termed the cold virus. Once again, the cold virus. Official Canadian data shows you're likely to live 2 to 3 years longer if you get or had COVID, the common cold. And that's because, it helps knock out other respiratory viruses. Now, if doctors were not under threat by their boards and colleges, they would tell you, daycare kids get sick less often in grade school, and daycare staff have known this for decades. Now, the latest nonsense I've heard is that Canadian has now been diagnosed with climate change. Yes, climate change, the height of idiocy and laziness in Canadian medicine. Meanwhile, official data shows we've never lived in a more climate-safe era. But I'm super glad those Hollywood special effects people and crisis actors have jobs, and I do know that's going on. Well, here's a fact known for about 80 years. Dr. Stephen Guffanti explained this to Stu Peters that, a first-year resident would have recognized bacterial pneumonia. And the fact is that gram-negative bacterial co-infections are responsible for about 75% of the lethal shock. What that means is most of what kills someone, 75% of it, is gram-negative bacteria. And we have very good antibiotics for that, thanks to Dr. Conover, who invented the antibiotic class that treats these infections. And even some combinations can work. So, therefore, if you ruled out gram-negative co-infections, we used to do a sputum sample in nursing. We used to just have someone, thump their back lightly and they'd cough up into a little sterile cup, and then pathology would diagnose the main pathogen and figure out the right antibiotic for it if that's what was needed. Viruses alone are not that powerful. I maintain that viruses are about 1 to 20% of our problem. 75% is gram-negative and maybe some gram-positive. There is no such thing as fatal strep A, by the way. That was invented in the last 10 years. Things do not evolve in 10 years like that in microbiology. If you studied even first-year microbiology, you would know that looking at your old textbooks, you'd see that what I'm saying is verifiable in books where the text hasn't been changed, like online. How things get changed. And there's funny math now. There's coroner math and radiology math. It's very strange now. It must be Common Core. Anyways, to make a short story even longer, Canadian, Scotland, and Netherlands data indicates you'll live longer with COVID. Now here's where I think where this is going. 6,000 robot nurses were deployed in Australia for 12-hour shifts. You see, because nurses, and I have great respect for them, but in the minds of some people, nurses are only good for temperature, pulse, and respiration, which we did 15 minutes post-op on a medical surgical ward. When I trained, this long time ago, but every 15 minutes. So all they care about is TPRs every 15 minutes. Why? Because the international organ trafficking trade has gone international. And Canada, by the way, is second highest on the watch list. Yes, this is illegal. And fun fact, anesthetic isn't even used on people that have their organs removed. So we're talking about some of the most heinous crimes against humanity here. More recently, I discovered more of these balloon releases, geoengineering. Now, Lizzie Burns at Harvard found this terrifying, even though we're told it's calcium carbonate to dim the sun to allegedly fight global warming, which doesn't exist. In fact, Earth is cooling a bit. And Dr. Ball won his 8-year court case. So what's in these things? Oh, look at that Wolbachia, and look at the refractability on the satellites. Oh, that's probably asbestos. Yeah, look at that. Isn't that interesting? At a drive-through COVID test center in Australia, 4 of these balloon releases, looks like early morning or middle of the night, they were blown up, so this will be in the air. So you drive through, you get this swab up your nose. Some of them have a biohazard symbol on them. A swab up your nose, and you drive on by, and you're breathing in all this crap that's going to be easier to infect your nasal membranes. You ever hear the saying, don't stick anything in your ear except your elbow? Well, your nasal membranes are even more vulnerable, more delicate, if you will. So what we need to figure out now, and I found ample evidence of this geoengineering around the world, is it appears that they're even releasing it on football fields near schools. So now the kids are told to wear masks indoors, which will impede their natural immune response, and then take it off outside for a masked break, where they're going to get a big waft, inordinate amounts of Wolbachia plus asbestos plus whatever else might be in there. It might be graphene hydroxide shards. It might be magnetic nanoparticles, so that satellite can pick up so-called hot zones where people are getting feverish. A kidney stays good about 20 hours in a dying person, if I remember correctly. So this would explain why pro athletes are collapsing on outdoor fields. And when I looked at the tally of this, it's about 75% of these deaths and heart attacks on outdoor fields. In pro athletes, the healthiest people on the planet, it's about 75% of the time outdoor sports, compared to about 24-25% of the time indoor sports, like, say, for instance, hockey. So there's lots of good evidence here. And before the climate lockdowns happen, and your 11-year-old gets forcibly removed from your home because she allegedly tests positive for COVID, the common cold, we better use laws that are on the books right now. And it's actually illegal to falsify weather. And in Canada, public misinformation, misinformation and public mischief charges can apply. And I strongly suggest police start looking into this, because there are doctors and surgeons more than happy to defund the police and bring in these $20 an hour security guards, alternate law enforcement like John Tory wants, to keep harassing law-abiding citizens. So anyway, I want to leave it a more positive note here on Christmas Day, December 25th, 2021. And I want to say that there's a lot of people, a lot more people coming forward behind the scenes you may not hear about. So hold on. I highly recommend listening to Dr. Vernon Coleman, because he seems like he's been way ahead of the curve on this a long time. Catherine Austin Fitz, Whitney Webb, she exposed things about Wellcome Trust I had no idea about. The Corbett Report, David Knight's excellent. Of course, Dr. David Martin, who has compiled everything that should put Dr. Fauci and Bill Gates behind bars. And a great big shout out to the Indian judicial system, who has charged Bill Gates and another person, I can't remember his name, with murder. Because this is mass genocide. And no one's special. They'll be happy to do robotic surgery and replace even the top surgeons. So no one's special. Anyways, thanks again. The new year will be even better. And I say do not comply with any part of this. None of the nasal swab, nothing. Nothing. Withdraw from the experiment. This was over March 13, 2020, over 21 months ago, when the Dangerous Pathogens Committee deemed it wasn't a high consequence infectious disease. It was over. It's still over. It's over. Done. Thanks again. Happy New Year in advance. Merry Christmas. Hug your kids. And I'm hoping this is my last video. Thanks.